And I just think the more Sams, the better. So
That's what I literally always say.
yep, same. And I've always said that.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Women's Game. This is a special episode made possible by our good friends at Ally Financial, a leading sponsor in the women's sports space and home to the largest digital bank in the U.S. Here at TWG, we could not be more excited that the NWSL is back this weekend. Plus, next weekend is the NWSL's Rivals Weekend, presented by Ally. Ally is the first ever official sponsor of the NWSL PA and is an official partner of the NWSL and the WNBA, who are also about to host their first Rivals Week. Ally is proud to play a role in bringing these platforms to life as they continue to intentionally invest in powering the growth of athletes, fandom, and leagues across women's sports. Ally's larger mission is to improve the economic mobility of others in all that they do, and that includes how they operate in the world of sports sponsorship. So, next Thursday, the Women's Game and Ally are putting on a live show in New York City ahead of NWSL Rivals Weekend, highlighting the matchup between Gotham and the Washington Spirit. We will be at Racket in New York City on August 7th at 7:30 p.m. with some very special guests to talk all things NWSL rivalries and more. And then next weekend, the league's biggest stars and teams are going head-to-head in marquee matchups that define the intensity and passion of this league. We're so grateful to Ally for supporting women's sports like the NWSL and the WNBA. You cannot talk about NWSL rivalries without talking about what might just be the league's oldest and most intense on-field feud, the Seattle Reign versus the Portland Thorns. Today, we're sitting down with a player who's been on the inside of both of these teams. She's also one of the most exciting defenders to come out of the Pacific Northwest. She became a hero to Reign fans with her key clearances and backline leadership, and now she's serving those up for their nemesis, the Portland Thorns. It's Portland Thorns defender, Sam Hiatt. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
It's like so fun to have another Sam on.
I know. I was like, Sam, thank you so much for having me.
I know. I was like searching for our text messages and I like typed in Sam and then I was like, this is literally never going to work. Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think especially because I feel like I can relate to how important and precious every moment of summer is. Like I live in Vermont. I know you live in the Pacific Northwest, and I just feel like whenever it's nice out, you have to like do summer as hard as possible. So I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to do this. I know that you like really identify as a Pacific Northwest girl. You've talked about how much you love being back in the area, being around your family, and just getting outside among the trees. What are your must-dos when it's nice out?
Honestly, I could talk for so long about Pacific Northwest summers. I always tell everyone in the dog days of January, February, March, April, May, when it's gray and rainy, I'm like, you guys just wait for the summer. Just wait. It's so beautiful and sunny. It's hot, but not too hot. It's not humid. Honestly, anything outside, I love me a body of water. So whether that's a lake or a river, just out a little ways, I think that's the best way to enjoy the quintessential Pacific Northwest summer.
I love that so much. I moved to Vermont like a year and a half ago and we live right by the lake. So now I'm just like a lake monster, literally.
Yep.
What is your favorite like water activity? Like do you paddleboard, swim? What else can you do? Canoe, kayak?
I maxed out at paddleboarding. That's the extent of my water activities, but I do love to swim too. Honestly, I know some people will go to a body of water and just lay next to it. I will always be in there. So I just love to jump in, cool off, especially once it actually gets warm too, where it's like, oh, I actually need to get in the water to cool down. But yeah, definitely have a paddleboard. Love a paddleboard adventure as well.
Oh, so cute. Okay, fun. So as we have clearly established, you're a local to the area that you're in right now. Kind of. You grew up 3 hours away from Portland in Kirkland, Washington, which is actually the Costco brand and a suburb of Seattle. We've talked a little bit already about this Portland-Seattle rivalry, and we've talked a lot about it on this show like previously. These cities have historic beef that goes all the way back to their founding. I think it was originally like a railroad-based situation, but it has obviously spilled over into everything from coffee to food to hipsters. But the competition between these cities is its absolute fiercest on the soccer field. We're going to get to that. But first, I just want to know, actually, in like the opposite spirit of the rivalry, what's the best thing that Portland and Seattle actually have in common?
I do think they're very similar in a lot of ways, which I think it's almost like it's like a sibling fight, which I feel like is why it goes so deep. It's like where we both have, like you said, great coffee, good food, similar, I think just vibes of the city in general in terms of like literal climate. And I think probably just like the people as well to a certain extent, which I think is, again, what kind of makes on the flip side, then the rivalry so heated because it's like just two very similar cities, groups of people,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to beat each other in every single sport. I remember one of my first years in Seattle, we had some internationals and we were trying to explain like the Seattle Portland rivalry. And we had some people over at my house. And I think my brother went on a 10-minute rant about Seattle versus Portland, University of Washington Huskies versus the Oregon Ducks, like Thorns, Rain, Timbers, Sounders. And then obviously now too, like we're going to have the WNBA teams, which will be fun to have like a Storms WNBA rivalry. So I think it really is, there's a lot of similarities, but at the same time, I think you really want to win in the rivalry game, whether that's, soccer, football. I mean, I'm sure at some points too, everyone's like, oh, yes, Pacific Northwest coffee. But then someone from Seattle might say, okay, well, we have the best coffee. And then Portland might
Yeah.
go, actually, no, well, we have the best coffee.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it like literally leaks into everything. Wait, I love that you said it's kind of like a sibling rivalry. I actually think that explains it so well because those of us from the outside are kind of like, yeah, it's like it seems kind of similar. They're both like beautiful. You can very close to like nature. Both
Mm-hmm.
have great coffee. So I think my question is, who's the older sibling? Or are they like weird, like fraternal twins?
I don't know. I feel like maybe weird. I feel like it's maybe like weird twins, but like I'm trying to think. I should know this. I don't know which city came first. I feel like never mind. I was about to
I don't
start
know.
guessing based off of geography. I'm like Oregon Trail, so it was like Oregon first, and then like a Seattle detachment. I think I would say it's giving twins, but whichever
Yeah.
the actual older city is like the twin that came out first.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, we like need to do some research on this, but this was like the best analogy I've ever heard. I want to like zero in on you a little bit. You were obviously a big soccer player in high school. You captained your team. You were named Washington's Gatorade Athlete of the Year. Now, I feel like a lot of young players are growing up knowing that there is like a very clear path to going pro. There's actually like multiple avenues to getting to play professionally. Some go pro before they even finish high school now, which is incredible. But you were coming up at the time that Seattle was getting their women's team, the Reign, off the ground. Do you have any memories of like seeing the Reign and watching the city embrace a professional women's team?
Absolutely. I have so many fond memories growing up watching both the Reign and even the team before that. I think it was the Sounders women. I just have a vivid memory of in like these green kits. I think it was like Hope Solo. I feel like Sydney LaRue too, like back in the day at the smaller Starfire Stadium. I was a ball girl for one of those games way back when. So I definitely always grew up knowing that there was a future for me in terms of soccer in Seattle. Like I grew up being able to watch those amazing women play, whether that was as a ball girl or as a fan. And I think too, so my mom and dad both played in college as well at Santa Clara. So I kind of just grew up with soccer on my radar. And so they definitely were taking me to those games. And so I think from a young age, I was knowing that a professional athlete, professional soccer player was something that I could aspire to be, which is pretty cool thinking about that, thinking of little Sam being a ball girl at a game at Starfire, now getting to have played in the NWSL, playing for that team is pretty cool. Pretty cool
It's
full circle moment.
It's so cool. That is such an incredible full circle moment. You mentioned your parents, and I know that your mom was also a pretty serious soccer player. She played her whole life and was part of the reason why you fell in love with the sport. Do you remember your mom like pushing you to play? Do you remember her excitement about the opportunities that were presented to you as you were kind of coming up and realizing that playing professionally was maybe realistic?
Yeah, I think again, I was just around soccer from an early age, but I think my
Yeah.
parents did such a good job of giving me the option, but not necessarily like forcing me down that path. Like I definitely have always been choosing it for myself. I played some other sports. I played basketball. There was a very brief ballerina stint. I'm not flexible enough for that,
Cute.
but I did do it. But whenever it came down to choose, like it was always going to be soccer for me. And so I do just remember them being, both my parents, and especially my mom as well, being just so excited for me and always wanting me to do the best that I could in whatever sport or activity I chose, but always at the same time, they balanced it so well with letting me drive it. And I think that's ultimately why I've been able to stick with it so long, because it genuinely has been me, the one wanting to do it and having the passion for it, even though I was, running around kicking a size 2 soccer ball like as soon as I could walk, I'm sure.
Same, literally. I think what you said about your parents like always supporting and providing the option, but never really pushing you into it really rings true with me. I remember my parents would always ask me and my sister Christy if we wanted to go away to youth national team camp. Like they'd be like, "You're invited, but would you like to go?" And we were like, "Yeah, like obviously we want to go," but they just really tried to like not force us or assume that we always wanted to do it. And I think that taking the pressure off in that way really allowed us to constantly choose it for ourselves and like keep such a passion for it. I know that you went on to play soccer at Stanford, but you actually also studied neuroscience, which is such an incredible thing to major in. I would love to hear more about that. My question here is actually about how you were teammates with Sophia Smith, now Wilson. But can you very quickly just tell us neuroscience? What was that like? And are you going to go back into that someday?
Honestly, it's so funny because I would like to give a shout out to Andy Sullivan for helping
Oh
me
my
just find
gosh.
my major. I remember one day she was doing some of her homework. We have same major but different concentrations, and that was my introduction to it all. And honestly, I was just taking classes I was interested in. I've always been fascinated by the brain, and with neuroscience, I got to take so many cool neurobio and like brain decoding classes. So
Wow.
I also did a little bit of computer science for my degree too. And honestly, I it's sitting in the back of my brain right now, but I do imagine I'll dust that off and use it at some point when I'm done playing soccer.
This is bringing me like weirdly back to rivalries and like left brain, right brain. I don't know if I'm like a creative right brain person, but like hearing you say neurobio, like my jaw was, I was like drooling. Like I don't even like know where that starts.
Yeah, again, I just was taking classes that were interesting to me, and it happened. Well, I mean, there was some planning involved, if I'm being honest. But within the classes that I could take, I just was always drawn to the ones around the brain because I just think it's so fascinating. So it was very interesting to me. And to your credit, you creative mind types, some of those classes, I'm like, wow, my brain hurts trying to think about that. So
It's so interesting how the human brain works. Wow. I'm sure you could tell us literally so much more about it. I do want to go back to asking you about Sophia Smith, now Sophia Wilson, being teammates with
mhm,
Soph in college at Stanford.
mhm.
You're a defender, Soph is a forward. How was that for like your development and your learning, having to try to slow down Sophia Wilson in training all the time?
It was excellent for my development. Was there also a lot of pain and frustration on the daily? Yes. I mean, when I was there, the forwards I was going up against, we had Sophia
Cat
Wilson, Katarina
Macario.
Macario. Like, I always said that I put in a shift every week so that on the weekends I could watch them do it to other teams when it really mattered. So, you know what? I have always been of the mindset that I don't mind suffering in training against some of the best attackers in the world if I can watch them turn around and do it to some other defenders on the weekend when, when it matters, when there are points on the line. And honestly, I've felt that way with every team that I've been on, even like in the NWSL and starting at Stanford. So shout out to all the amazing forwards I've played with. I love you dearly on the weekends, and you've made my job very interactive, strenuous. And on the weekdays, I was learning a lot as well. So
Yeah.
it is great for development. I genuinely enjoyed the challenge every day of showing up and trying to stop them, doing my best. It got me ready for the
Totally.
weekend as well.
Totally. I think what's interesting about this for me is it's not like you were competing with them for a spot because you were like, but in the midfield, you're playing around and against in training the other players who like we all want to be starting. So there's a similar kind of like deep appreciation for your teammates being so good and then getting to watch them like destroy other teams. But there's also this like weird competitiveness, which I'm sure exists for defenders and forwards
Hmm.
too. This competitiveness of like, well, I want to play. So like we're up against each other in training and I need to get the spot. You obviously had a very impressive career at Stanford. You were captain your junior and senior seasons. You led the team to an NCAA championship in 2019. And when you graduated, you entered the 2020 weird year NWSL draft and you were selected by your hometown club, the Seattle Reign. I would love to go into that moment and for you to tell us what it was like, not just to know you were like starting your professional career, but that you were doing it with your hometown club.
Yeah, it was so awesome. And I'm always so grateful to the Rain for drafting me because a little bit of backstory in the grand scheme of the unconventional 2020, I also had an unconventional draft route because I had actually, after we won the championship my senior fall, and then I
Mm-hmm.
actually had to get hip surgery right afterwards. And so, like, when the draft happened, I was on crutches. I was not going to be able to play for 9 months. And so, I originally didn't even think that any NWSL team would draft me. And so, my original plan was to go abroad and then come back into the NWSL the next year. And so, I didn't even put my name in the draft up
Oh my
until I
gosh.
think one of my club coaches, someone knew the Reign staff and were like, "Hey, like, how come Sam's name isn't in the draft?" And I explained my situation, and they were like, "Oh, we would draft you." And obviously, I went from thinking I had zero NWSL prospects to like the dream to play for your hometown club. So I'm at Stanford at this point. I have to pull over on the side of the road and put my name into the
Oh my
draft
God.
to hopefully, be drafted by Seattle. And so when the draft happened, I was sitting in class. I got a text from my agent just right before it happened, just like the fire emojis. And I remember like being in class trying to like look down at my phone and see what was going on. So I was drafted while I was sitting in class at Stanford. But honestly, again, it was an unconventional like draft day, draft route. But I'm, again, just so grateful to Seattle. And it honestly ended up working out because, then we had a global pandemic. So we weren't really playing for those months anyway. So it kind of worked out for me to just come in. The fall series that year was like my first like pro trainings and all of that. So a slightly different route, but it worked out.
Well, we've been talking about that so much lately about how there is so many different ways to like get to the pinnacle of your career now. I want to talk a little bit more about Seattle and Portland because you went to the Reign, but a few of your Stanford teammates, like Sophia Smith, ended up at the Portland Thorns. Both the Thorns and the Reign were founded in 2013, and they've kind of been enemies ever since. They're pretty much deadlocked when it comes to like wins over the other, like playing against each other. But those matches have been home to some of the league's biggest crowds and most legendary smack talk. We've even heard the Thorns have a special fight song dedicated to playing against the Reign. We've had Becky Sauerbrunn and Christine Sinclair tell us all about it. How did those initial days of like you going to Seattle, but watching some of your friends go to Portland make the rivalry real for you, like right from the jump?
I will always remember my first Cascadia rivalry. I remember the first time I played at Providence Park, and it was so cool. Like the atmosphere is just unmatched. And obviously now I'm a huge fan of it and I get the benefits of it. But I just remember that first, like my rookie season, walking in and just hearing and feeling the energy from the crowd. And it was so memorable. And again, I'm just very grateful to be on the other side now. But it was, again, after playing with Soph for so many years and being able to benefit from her many talents, then it became okay, well now it's flipped. Now I'm trying to stop her on the weekends. And I think again, it was just a little bit of just a point of pride, like as a defender, as a former teammate, just wanted to do my best, do what I could against her, and especially obviously when we were playing the Thorns.
I know that your 2021 season also got cut a little bit short due to a back injury, but that in 2022, we all really, as NWSL fans, started to get a sense of you as a player. You started every game. You ranked in the top 10 for clearances in the league. You even helped the Reign to win the Supporters Shield. But the Reign just could not beat Portland that year. Every time you met on the field during the regular season, it ended in a draw. This might sound weird, but I feel like there's also something kind of satisfying in knowing that, yes, there's this huge rivalry and like lots of like battles back and forth, but it's because these teams are so evenly matched. So it almost like makes the rivalry stronger that it's such a back and forth battle. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I always describe this game as a fist fight, metaphorically, but also in terms of like, it does not matter what the table looks like. It doesn't matter who is ranked, where, who has the form, who has all of that does not matter, because when this game rolls around, it's just different. There's a different energy about it. There's a different, I mean, you prepare the same way. In a lot of ways, it is just another game. So you don't want to like overhype it. There's a balance to it. But at the same time, you need to be ready. It's a little more feisty. There's a different energy to it. And honestly, I remember, so obviously I came into the league and I played for Seattle for my first 4 years. So then when I went to Gotham last year and we came to play Portland, I was bamboozled. I was like, is this how everyone else feel like this is what it's like to play Portland for everybody else. I was so confused. It was just, and even then later when we played Seattle, it just doesn't have the same, like you don't realize the energy of the rivalry until you're not in it, I guess. And so that was kind of, it was a fun and funny experience when I first walked in and I'm like the fans are, it's just not the same. It's not the same energy. But
the fans aren't like hissing at us.
Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. Obviously, they're still loud, but it's just not as, I don't even know, personal. I remember so vividly. I can't remember. I think we were playing at Providence Park one year and someone was getting subbed off. I feel like it was probably Pino. Like they're taking their shin guards off. And I just am facing the Riveters and I can just see, I think almost everyone's flipping her off as she's getting subbed off. Like I have it so clearly, or maybe it was Jess Fishlock. I can't remember. It was one of the two. Yeah. And the thing that's like burned in my memory is just seeing the sea of Providence Park and everyone just like double hands up, like flipping off whoever it was, just being subbed off. And whoever was walking off, just clapping, thanking the crowd. So again, it's just different and you can't really, you just have to experience it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Well, you mentioned this little break that you took from the Cascadia rivalry in 2024. You were traded to Gotham all the way over on the East Coast. I imagine this felt really far from home. You've spent almost your whole life in the Pacific Northwest. How did you manage this move, even though it ended up being short? And did you come to appreciate anything in particular about the East Coast?
I always say I am a Pacific Northwest girly at heart, but I do also love the East Coast. So I did my freshman year at Boston College. And so I did really enjoy, like I loved Boston. I always said that I love Boston as a city. And I enjoyed the East Coast. I enjoyed the things that were different because it is different. If you've lived in both places, you kind of know. I think it was also helpful. I did know some people when I was there. So obviously getting to play with Tierna again was awesome. Rose and Sonnet also, we all left Seattle at the same time to go there together. So we were kind of the new players together at the same time. But, everything that is stereotypical about the Northeast, loved it. The bagels, loved it. Absolutely enjoyed that fall when the leaves changed. Loved it. So there were definitely some differences, but I enjoyed it. I don't know. And I didn't mind kind of getting to have the experience of, I'm in a new city versus when I was drafted to Seattle. Absolutely loved being a hometown, like a homegrown player. But at the same time, it was kind of fun getting to explore and find new coffee shops and restaurants and kind of do all those little things. So I enjoyed it for sure. And my family has always said they will come watch me play wherever. So they're very happy that now I'm just a 3-hour drive down the road, but credit to them. They were making the cross country trek and they were taking the flights as well.
That is so sweet. Well, we all know where this story goes next. At the end of 2024, for the first time in your career, you were a free agent, which meant you could pursue playing anywhere in the world that you wanted. And you picked Portland. And after, kind of this whole lifetime of having beef with your Cascadian neighbors, you willingly put on a Thorns jersey. So I'm so curious, how did this opportunity get presented to you? How did these talks start? Why was Portland the right place for you?
I think the year in between was also very important just in terms of perspective, because it was more so at the end of my time in New York, I was just trying to figure out, okay, what's the best fit for me? Where's the best place for me to go? And ultimately, Portland, I decided was the right fit for a lot of reasons, honestly. I loved what they're building here, and the chance to be a part of such a historic club was a great opportunity just in and of itself. And again, I think between the ownership and the players and the staff, everyone is just kind of committed to building something new. Kind of transitioning into this year, it's a different looking Portland than maybe teams in the past. And I think there was just excitement in that, and honestly being able to be a part of building a team and coming in at a time that just felt right and felt like a good opportunity. And again, just had the bonus of being back in the corner of the US that I do love.
From the moment you signed, what surprised you the most about becoming a Thorn?
I don't know if anything surprised me. I've just really enjoyed, again, being on this side of the Providence Park experience, having those fans at my back and feeling that energy. I actually grew up playing youth soccer in Seattle. We used to come down to Portland all the time. So I feel like I was actually pretty familiar with the city, which was nice, just having some level of comfort, even though it was a new place. So I think less of being surprised and more so just everything that I thought was going to be great or I had admired absolutely delivered. Again, the coffee, the green trees, love it. And then the club itself and the fans, everyone in Portland has absolutely delivered on that experience as well.
That's incredible. I feel like the fans in Portland, I have so much respect for. Obviously, I played for North Carolina for most of my career, and not the Cascadia rivalry by any means, but we did have like a little thing going on with Portland. And while I felt like the wrath of the fans at times, I have so much respect for the way they show up for their team. And like women's sports like needs more of their passion. I just think it's like they're the most incredible fan base. Is there anybody on your Portland team right now that you're like particularly really enjoying playing with? Like how has the adjustment been, and who do you find yourself like really excited to show up and train with every day?
I will say, I think we have a great culture and a great environment this year, and I really just loved honestly getting to know everyone and the environment that we're creating. But I have to say, I absolutely love playing, not to bring a third Sam into the mix, I love playing with Sam Coffey. And she is just, I mean, she's a world class midfielder, and especially as a center back, having her in front of me, it's just so great to play with her, just knowing that if I have the ball, she will be making herself available to try and get open. And just having that presence, obviously, she has a lot of experience. I think she's a great person off the field and a great player, a great leader. I could speak so highly for her for so long, but just a great presence to have on a team. That's someone who you want on your team. She's raising the level at practice. She's raising the level on game day as well. So it's fun playing with her just purely as a center back and a sixth relationship, but also just as a teammate. Great person to have around, honestly, every day of the week, game days, training days, all of it.
I actually love that you brought a third Sam into the mix. I think it's like the exact right amount of Sams. Pretty early in your time with the Thorns, you took on the Reign at your old home of Lumen Field in Seattle. What did that game feel like for you to be back at that field in a Thorns jersey?
It was a little bit surreal at first, purely just because I actually missed that trip last year with Gotham. So that was just my first time being back at Lumen in general. And I think anytime, like, as you know, when you switch a team, like the first time back is just a little bit like, oh, you're going to the away team locker room for the first time, but you know what's going on in the home team locker room. When I first pulled up, it was like strange in that sense. But once you get out on the field at the same time, it's like business as usual too.
Mm-hmm.
Just the difference was I had like 30 family and friends in the stands. So it was honestly just nice that they were all able to come, but wish we had gotten a different result for sure. But again, that's just the Cascadia rivalry. Like on the day, anyone can win.
Yep.
But at the same time, again, the energy was there. The fight, the feistiness, all of the above was definitely there.
I feel like it's been really cool from the outside to watch you become a Thorn and become a part of that community. We were talking about the fans a little bit earlier. But the team actually named you as the Thorns 2025 nominee for the Lauren Holiday Community Impact Award for your work with the Candlelighters for Children with Cancer, which I know was inspired by your brother's own fight with lymphoma. Can you tell us a little bit about the volunteering you do with this group and how the Thorns community has supported you?
Yeah, the Thorns community has been great, top to bottom, but especially my teammates as well have been so supportive of me throughout this process. The Candlelighters organization is so cool. They are locally based here in Beaverton, and they just provide a lot of different support for families who are going through a journey with a child who has been diagnosed with cancer. And so they help these families in so many different ways. And I've been so grateful that we've had the opportunity just to highlight the amazing work that they're doing and try and give back as well. They have a family day every year. And this year a bunch of the Thorns players went, and I'm just so grateful. Like so many of my teammates came and showed up, and there were so many kids who had the best time at the Thorns station. We had a soccer station, of course. And I think it really made a lot of kids' days to be able to play soccer with professional athletes. And I think it put a lot of smiles on my teammates' faces as well. So they're an amazing organization. And we also have some other things lined up with them for the coming weeks as well that I'm really excited about. But it's honestly just been so nice to be able to give back to the Portland community in some way, because as we talked about, they show up for us every game day and just throughout the whole season as well. I think the Portland community does such a good job supporting the Thorns. So to find a way to give back, especially in this way that's extra meaningful to me after my brother's experience, has been something that I've really enjoyed.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's really incredible. I'll definitely be following along with what you have coming up in the next couple of weeks. I do want to get back to our rivalry a little bit because the last time the Thorns took on the Reign, you mentioned Seattle won, but we're at a really different point in the season now. We're past the halfway mark, and this is when it feels like every game and every single point really does matter as we kind of race towards playoffs. Right now, only 2 points separate the Thorns and the Reign in the standings. And I think that for a brand like Ally, who have recognized the power of women's sports and the role that brands can play, to sponsor this rivalry weekend of games is proof that Ally are showing up when and where it counts, not just slapping their logos on in the tentpole moments. So for you as a player, Sam, how important does this upcoming Cascadia rivalry game feel?
It feels so important. And it's, as you mentioned, like for so many different reasons. First of all, again, shout out to Ally because I think rivalries are so good for the sport. I think it's so good for women's soccer. And, if you're going to talk about rivalries in the NWSL, but also just women's soccer in general, you have to talk about the Cascadia rivalry. So there's just so many layers going into it when it's a Seattle-Portland game because, again, you don't want to do too much in terms of like overhyping it or throwing yourself off because in some aspects you need to prepare the same way you would for any other game. But at the same time, it's not any other game. And throughout the whole week, it's kind of in the back of your head. Like you just know, like, okay, we're playing Seattle. And especially again, for us, knowing that we didn't get the result we wanted last time, like there's just a little bit extra that goes into it. We learn the lessons. You kind of have to push it out of your mind because you have a game the next weekend. But now that it's coming back up on the horizon, you're like, okay, I remember how this happened last time. Like we want something different. We want a different result. We want to win. So it's kind of just a balancing act because you want to get hyped. You have to be ready to match the energy of the moment and be ready for that. But at the same time, you want to prepare the same way we always do to be, as prepared as possible.
Totally. And I love how you put it that this rivalry is like such an important part of the history of this league. And I think as like a former player who was kind of, in the NWSL throughout so many different moments of importance and moments of history, I'm so glad that it's players like you who are carrying on the traditions of this league and taking this rivalry really seriously and, really wanting it to go your way and to represent the league really well. So I'm so appreciative of everything that you shared. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know you today, Sam. It's been really, really cool to like learn about this rivalry from somebody who's also experienced it from like almost every angle. I'm a huge fan of you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no, thank you again for having me. Honestly, this has been so fun. And I just think the more Sam's, the better. So
that's what I literally always say.
Yep, same. And I've always said that.
Huge thanks again to our friends at Ally, an official banking partner of the NWSL and WNBA, for sponsoring this episode. Ally is the first and still the only brand to publicly commit to spending equally on men's and women's sports media with its 50-50 pledge. Be sure to keep your eyes peeled next weekend for the biggest rivalry matchups in both the NWSL and the WNBA, as NWSL Rivals Weekend and WNBA Rivals Week presented by Ally will highlight both classic and emerging rivalries in marquee matchups that embody the intensity and passion of both leagues. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you soon.